So, even though it borrows some of Dave Filoni's toys, Filoni and his partner in Star Wars, Jon Favreau, aren't at all involved in Obi Wan Kenobi. And boy, does it show. Whew! I'll be glad when they come back for Mando Season 3 and Ahsoka in particular. Like the prequels, the Star Wars prequels that Obi-Wan builds off of, it's a mixed bag for sure. But I know some of you, just like with the prequels, really enjoyed today's 2 episodes. And nobody likes to have something they love crapped all over. So what I'm going to do is start with what I like about Obi Wan Kenobi episodes 1 and 2 before talking about what I don't like. And if you want to bow out with a warm glow just talking about the positive, then more power to you. I want you to be able to have a good time. But if you're like me and you're like, there's something off here, well, we'll talk about that too. All right, so let's start with the good. Ewan McGregor's Sir Alec Guinness impression is super sweet. I love it. I'm a big fan of Alec Guinness. So it's really nice. And even though Alec Guinness came to not care for Star Wars very much because it's all anyone ever asked him about, towards the end of his life, oh, how horrible, people like something you were in. But I mean, that was the beginning of fandom. So Alec Guinness was like, what's happening? But anyway, he's a wonderful actor and a charming actor. And I think that Ewan McGregor's doing an excellent job affecting his speech, not only his accent, but his speech patterns. So it's really cool. And it's cool because you're seeing the evolution of Obi-Wan, going from the Obi Wan Kenobi of the prequels and the animated series to becoming Alec Guinness's Ben Kenobi that we see in A New Hope. How did that happen? So this is the connective tissue that shows that, and that's fascinating to see. And I like him talking to his master, Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn, and I'm sure that at some point Liam Neeson is going to answer. I think it's just too big a tease. It's just too big. I know Liam Neeson has said that he doesn't want to do streaming. I think he's pulling an Andrew Garfield. I bet he shows up. I bet at a very important, crucial point in this show, he'll call out to Qui-Gon Jinn and get an answer. And maybe his Force Ghost will appear as well, which will be amazing. We'll all be so happy. But I also like focusing on this chain of masters and apprentices. That's kind of, that's the only connection really that the Jedi have, and how that's like a chain. A little bit like the Avatars, by the way, right? In The Last Airbender. A chain of support and still, tutelage. Still teaching each other and still being there for one another. I think that's great. So I like that even the connection between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader is there because he, of course, that was a master-apprentice relationship. So I like that. On that note, the connections. I think it's actually brilliant to build up Leia's relationship with Obi-Wan because, of course, in A New Hope, she sends R2-D2 to get his help because obviously, at some point, because she certainly doesn't on this show, she's going to trust and respect him. So I think that's very clever, in fact, to talk about how that happened. Obi-Wan, apparently his babysitting services have a very wide reach because he's actually looking after both children. And why wouldn't he? Of course, as Jimmy Smith says, don't they both matter? George Lucas was clearly making some of this stuff up as he went along. That's why Luke and Leia kissed, because they were supposed to, I think, be a couple. And then when everybody wanted Leia and Han to get together, and so George Lucas is like, well, don't feel bad for Luke because it's actually a sister. And you're like, well, now I still feel bad for him because he kissed his sister and had impure thoughts about her. Obi-Wan, you should have told them they were related. All right, so anyway, but I do like setting up that connection. And on that note, also, building on that, patterns in Star Wars. Star Wars loves to be cyclical. For better or for worse, we'll talk about that. But I think that, Leia uses doubles, just like her mother before her. And how is that genetic? I mean, that's so funny. It's like, the gene of impersonation and body doubles. But yes, somehow she got the idea to do that. I like that, I think some people pointed out during the watch along, Leia gets kidnapped as a child, so she's used to it by the time she's an adult, which is why she's so unfazed in A New Hope when Darth Vader kidnaps her. She's like, whatever, man, I've done this dance so many times before. And she's been escaping since she was 10. So that's why, of course, she takes matters into her own hands also in A New Hope. I think, you have to, honor the past, but I think you have to not be too weighed down to it. Because I think, I'm sorry, I'm going to sneak a little bad in here because it just occurred to me. I think that in an effort to check these boxes in the other parts of the Star Wars lore, it makes the actual story that's being told here a little less organic. They're like, oh, but isn't that cool that she was kidnapped because she's kidnapped later? And you're like, yeah, I mean, I kind of worked. I thought that was clever. That was Reva's idea. But the child is such a bad actress who's playing Leia that kind of messes it up. But anyway, we're focusing on the good. All right, so also Obi Wan is disenchanted, cynical, depressed, and in hiding, just like Luke Skywalker does later on. So, and just like Yoda, you thought it was because of Order 66. I mean, what's Luke Skywalker's excuse? I guess that's still, it's still the repercussions of that. They used to be a happy group. All right, so anyway, speaking of Jedi, I also really love this idea that the Jedi cannot help themselves, and they must do good, even if they know it will endanger themselves. The Sith, of course, prioritize themselves, so that's very interesting. The selfless versus the selfish. I like that. That's great. So, an itch that must be scratched. But the line that I prefer even more is the Jedi hunts himself. The Jedi knows he is walking into a trap and yet cannot help himself and knowingly walks into the trap, which I think is fascinating. And again, shows a pattern of not just the Jedi behavior, but in Star Wars, it's always a trap. And that kind of makes it make sense in both a jokey and a non-jokey way. So I like that. Now, one Favreau and Filoni trick is that they show a veteran clone trooper, and sure enough, he's played by Tamura Morrison. Oh, that was wonderful, begging for money in that city in the second episode. I thought that was such a great Easter egg. I was delighted. If only there'd been a group of them. Why not? Banding together, trying to make it on the streets. I mean, it's moments like that where Disney cheaps out and it really hurts them and you can feel it. You're like, come on, Tamura Morrison was there. Couldn't you just have filmed a couple of them? I think that would have been just so fantastic and made it, I'll take what we got, but that would have been even better. Another nice moment that's not very Favreau and Filoni, which is unique to this show, is the interaction that Obi-Wan has with that girl who's selling drugs on the street as well. And he says, I'm looking for my daughter, a cover, of course, and she says, well, you'll never find her because I was someone's daughter too before I was brought here. And that hit me in the feels. And then she says, just to really twist the knife, take enough spice and you'll forget all about her and you won't be sad anymore that you lost your daughter. I was like, wow, they're spinning some hard truths on this show. And I think that that's an important thing to put out there because the dangers of trafficking, child trafficking, are quite real. I don't know if you saw the recent headline. It was so disturbing that just this month or so, a 15-year-old girl, and you would think 15 is pretty big, a 15-year-old girl, her father let her go to the bathroom by herself at the Dallas Mavericks Stadium, owned by Mark Cuban, that's his team. She never came back, and she had already, in just 10 days, been put into prostitution. And thankfully, a nonprofit organization found her because the Dallas police wouldn't do anything because they are instructed to have all missing teenagers treated as runaways instead of being abducted. I mean, that's incredible. And I think it's important to make sure that people realize, you might be like, well, kids are watching this show. Good. Let them know that this is still a very real danger. And it was pretty adult with Obi Wan in the meth lab as well. I was like, wow, woo. Then Reva. Oh, she's definitely in the good category. Reva, she's so great. Some people were trying to go around and saying, oh, this is really Reva's show. I mean, it's Reva's show because, Moses Ingram is working harder than Ewan McGregor. And I think also, some of the choices they've made for Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan do not serve him well from a narrative perspective. But Reva, what a character and what a fantastic addition to Star Wars lore. She's the Wendy Bird of Star Wars, as I said during the watch-along. She gets shit done. She's as cold, calculating, and ambitious as male characters, both villains and anti-heroes, and I love to see it. She's very clever, and she doesn't talk the talk without walking the walk. She told that lady she was cutting off hands, and that lady kept it up. So, how's anyone going to fear Reva if she doesn't deliver on her promises, her threats? So I thought that was excellent. I couldn't believe that lady kept talking. And her hand, she kept talking and held her hand right out, no less. I was like, that's definitely getting cut off. I thought that was a great line that Reva says, we go for the hands first, so every time you reach for something, you think of us. I was like, that's good. That's good. She goes also when she does that rooftop chase, as some of you pointed out, she was moving very Matrix style. There's a lot of Keanu vibes in the first 2 episodes here, with shades of John Wick as well in episode 2, when they have all the bounty hunters searching for Obi Wan. And I'm so glad she took out Rupert Friend's Grand Inquisitor, which I think was supposed to be a big surprise because he was such a big character on Star Wars Rebels, but he was so annoying. I think we were all relieved. We were like, thank God for shutting him up. How could Vader allow so much infighting within the ranks of his Inquisitors? And some of you pointed out, where's the Human Resources Department? I mean, it's a miracle they were catching any Jedi with the way things were going. But Reva is clearly very powerful, which is exciting. And she will either make a great villain or maybe she'll become the new Grand Inquisitor. But if Obi-Wan can turn her maybe back to the Force, I sense good in her, I have to say. Maybe if he can't bring Darth Vader back, maybe he can bring Reva back. And I mean, she would, I think, be a great Jedi at a time when they sure need to swell their ranks. Forget swell, just have any ranks. I think that's the way I would love to see this go. She's fantastic. I'm so happy for Moses Ingram. Then I really liked Kumail Nanjiani. I thought he was very funny as usual, but I liked him running a scam as a Jedi using magnets, etc. Although it was pretty clear. Although I thought when he pulled it to his hand, that was pretty good. But the window shades, I was like, come on, who's falling for that? I'm so glad he was still helping people. I thought he was just taking their money and then maybe sending them up the river. But I was glad he was still helping people and just making a little money on the side. And I wish we had more time to establish that gag, by the way. It felt rushed. But I love when that little boy came back to him and said, we had this guy. Look at this bounty. And I love that Kumail Nanjiani was like, that's embarrassing. Oh, that was great. It was classic Kumail Nanjiani. I loved it. And I thought it was odd, though, that Reva didn't kill him. She read his mind, which was cool. But it seemed out of character for her. So that makes me think there is maybe still some good in her. She only really killed the Grand Inquisitor. Otherwise, she was just cutting off some arms. And who doesn't do that in Star Wars? They're cutting off limbs left and right. There's a great business in replacement limbs. Don't worry about it. But also, I still can't get over how different Kumail Nanjiani looks. I'm like, wow, he's not going back to the way he was. This is how he looks now. Joel Edgerton also did a very nice job with extremely little. That was very little to do, but he was great. I like that, Obi-Wan is trying to leave Luke toys. Were they toys or were they early training tools? But still, I thought that, and I like that Joel Edgerton's Uncle Owen saw right through it. Why would Luke run off on him, though? I don't know why Luke and Leia are such jerks on this show. It's like, has Luke been kidnapped? No, he's just playing right in the middle of chores. It's not like they'd stopped chores for a while or they'd left him alone. Owen literally said, go over there and get something. And Luke went over there and didn't come back and decided to start playing. You're like, what? I mean, that was just ridiculous to me. There's like total lack of discipline with these Skywalker kids. All right, so anyway, we're talking about positive, and I do think there are some positive aspects to Leia, because it's always in Star Wars, Luke, right? Although some fans will be disappointed in the fake out. You were promised Luke, and you got Leia. I think especially because when you do get Luke, he's often not depicted the way some of you would like him to be. I've always thought Luke was a whiny bitch. I'm sorry. So I've always thought it's been in character, but I know some of you feel like that glimpse you got of him, when he showed up on Disney Plus was what you want, at the end of Mando season 2 is what Luke is supposed to be. And he's just never realized that, which is, I can see why you're so disappointed. And it's interesting to see Leia's qualities as an adult and her as a child, because let's not forget, she was really annoying in the movies as well. And on that note, let's switch over to the bad. Leia! There is a very fine line between precocious and a pain in the butt. We see it with child actors all the time. And I gotta tell you, Leia has just leaped over that line. She is solidly in the pain in the butt category. Many of us during the watch along were like, Obi, just leave her at this point. I mean, it was ridiculous. She was so disrespectful and I mean, that's just bad writing. It's bad writing and bad acting, unfortunately, on the part of the child actor. She was rude to Obi-Wan and she was rude to her mother, who, by the way, made a big deal about wanting a daughter, which is why Jimmy Smits adopted Leia, but then all she does is complain about Leia. I was like, raising a child's not easy. You got to put the time in. You get in what you get, just like she tells her daughter, you get out of it what you put in to being a royal person. It's the same with being a parent. She doesn't follow her own advice. Everyone loves Obi-Wan. He's a global hero. So I wouldn't want to be the character, which Leia is here, disrespecting him and putting his life in danger. I mean, basically, every bad stereotype about female characters just came rushing back with this character Leia here, which is interesting because Leia in the original movies is a shining example of those bad stereotypes, and that we're trying to move away from them. And so it's kind of disheartening to go right back to them with now baby Leia. Oh, baby Leia. All right. Another problem is Obi Wan's lethargy, which reminds me a little bit of Boba Fett, who also became a reluctant hero, lead character in his own series. And it was a problem there too. Obi Wan doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to use, Boba Fett didn't want to be a criminal. Obi Wan doesn't want to be a Jedi. And you're like, then what are we doing here? Obi Wan doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to use his lightsaber, yet he doesn't want to bother to disguise himself. I'm like, you ever thought of maybe changing your appearance, maybe even just a little bit? Every time someone in the movies goes on the run, the first thing they do is change their appearance, dye their hair, shave off his beard. But no, he looks exactly the same. And then when he decides to go look for Leia, he's like, let me dig out the old Jedi robe that nobody else is wearing and go walk around in it. And he's waving his lightsaber. He's not turning it on, but he might as well for how he's letting everybody see it, on his belt. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Also, how does Obi-Wan not know that Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker, is alive? It's been 10 years. Vader is a major figure in the Empire, and he runs the Inquisitors, who Obi-Wan has seen in this very show before he learns that. Doesn't he know anything about that group? Or if he didn't, you think he would have asked during that scene or after that scene. Also, Obi-Wan is in communication with Jimmy Smits. Didn't Anakin Skywalker living and being turned into Darth Vader warrant to beep on the old communique before the Leia kidnapping situation? Jimmy Smits wasn't like, maybe I should call Obi-Wan. I think he might want to know about this. It's so stupid. Maybe in episode 3, Obi-Wan's like, what the hell, Jimmy Smits, when he returns Leia. And, also, can't Obi-Wan just feel Anakin via the Force? You would think their connection would be pretty strong. And then also, speaking of incompetent, I'm sorry, I don't like to say that about Obi-Wan, but this is weird. But why are all the other Inquisitors besides Reva so incompetent? There's, again, an insane amount of infighting. It's almost cartoonish. It's like that villain who's I must do, just like the Jedi can't help themselves, it seems the Inquisitors can't help themselves in letting the Jedi escape. It's just so ridiculous. The pacing also is very bad on the show. Very bad. Way too slow in some points and yet rushed in others. So that the story doesn't get to breathe and feel organic, and then there's not enough action either. It's crazy. It's always a problem when your lead character doesn't want to fight. John Wick didn't want to fight, but they talked him into it pretty quick. We're 2 episodes in of 6 episodes, and Obi-Wan is still a pacifist. It's like, come on, Obi. It's the same problem we have with all these Star Wars shows, is that we know it's a limited amount of running time, and we're like, let's pick up the pace already. Also, the acting is surprisingly bad from some people. Some people are very good, but some people are very bad. I'm looking at you, Leia. I don't like to criticize child actors, but she's bringing this whole show down. And Betty Safdie, who I've seen do a good job acting, for some reason here, he is awful. And also, some of the VFX are really bad in some places. So to have bad pacing, acting, and VFX, during the watch-along, I was like, do you think they're doing this intentionally so it feels like the prequels? And some of you were like, yeah, it does feel like the prequels, in the bad way. And then also, not enough Vader Hayden Christensen. That little tease at the end wasn't enough. I think he stayed in the bathtub too long. He's all wrinkly. But I just saw Boba Fett floating in a Bacta tank. It's the same thing. Come on. Talk about cyclical. And if Hayden Christensen's going to do the press tour and be everywhere, they should have, I don't see Liam Neeson walking around on the press tour, so I'm like, okay, we don't have to see him right away. But Hayden Christensen has been promoting this. He was a major selling point for this show. Again, they're like, ooh, Hayden Christensen, Luke Skywalker, Leia, and she's annoying. And you're like, you're not helping female characters with this. But anyway, I think there should have been a flashback or a dream where Obi-Wan imagined if he hadn't killed Anakin. That nightmare he has in the cave, and they're like, oh, previously on Star Wars. And you're like, but we already did it previously on Star Wars. I guess they're not thinking about what they put the pre-roll as. They're just thinking about the show within itself. But I would have liked to have seen, Hayden Christensen. I think that would have been nice. I would have liked it. I think that they disappointed. It was disappointing. So I think overall Obi-Wan is off to a disappointing weak start. And the cyclical nature of Star Wars means that sometimes they repeat their mistakes. That's That's not good. But I'm not giving up on this show. I mean, that first lightsaber battle during, Order 66, I think that showed some potential. Some of you felt it looked a little bit like a fan film. I didn't think that was true. I thought it was kind of cool. I liked it. I'm still amazed that they had basically like one stormtrooper per Jedi, and yet still the Jedi lost. I'm like, there were a lot of Jedi in that temple. I think maybe, I can't believe the Jedi never built any escape tunnels or anything like that. I guess the Jedi, of course, were always very good, and they cannot help themselves. So anyway, I mean, I'm surprised at how, I thought they were holding back the first 2 episodes from press because they were holding back, they didn't want to ruin any surprises, but it's actually because they're kind of weak. And I think it's like Boba Fett all over again, which is weird, but maybe it'll be like Boba Fett in that 5 and 6 are incredible. So let's see. So what do you think? What did you like? And if anything, what did you not like? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.